I, known as the jailbird, was a famous man in our small town. I was sure that people envied me because I had dared to do what many of them probably had only dreamed about. My real name is Wilmer after some distant relative in Minnesota, which wasn't very funny when I was kid because I was the only Wilmer in school and because Beetle Bailey was called Wilmer during the first time the cartoon was published in this country, and I was forced to fight about my name now and then. However, today Wilmer is one of most popular boy names here, so nobody cares about my name anymore. Until going to my army service, I was regarded as a good boy living a rather boring life with a handsome but prudish girlfriend by the name of Elise who would never agree to anything before the wedding night. Since both her and my parents were teetotalers, even any kind of alcohol was out of the question. Then everything changed when I came to an infantry regiment where I was trained to be the driver of an armored car. We were a two-man crew on that vehicle, and my co-driver, Billy Storm, was a funny big town guy, just like something between Killer and Rocky in the Beetle Bailey cartoons. We were two quite opposite characters, indeed, but in a short time we had came to be really good friends. When Billy heard about my sober life and failed attempts to get in Elise, he shook his head and said, "Poor bastard, you've only got one life. For heaven's sake, don't waste it." Somehow I must have agreed that he was probably right. As usual, he got one of his bright ideas and thereafter it was impossible to stop him from carrying out his intentions. This time he spent some time secretly making phone calls until he said, "You are not going home this weekend because you are visiting the real world with me." He ignored my objections about not having any other civilian clothes with me than jeans and a jeans jacket, and he said that it would be okay for this trip. On Friday, we got off duty about 4 o'clock and began our journey with stealing 50 liters of gasoline in 2 Jeep cans from a parked army car. Then after a short stop at one of the garrison town's several black market booze dealers where Billy chose 3 bottles of wine for me and a whiskey for himself, we left for Billy's hometown, which happens to be the capital of the country. There he stopped at a back street on the south side of the city, told me to follow him into a building, and at the 3rd floor he pushed the button on a doorbell. A rather nice woman, obviously in her late 20s, opened the door and Billy said, "Hello, Anita. Here is my pal, Wilmer. Take good care of him." To me he said, "Be a good guy. See you tomorrow evening in town." Billy disappeared quickly and the pretty woman asked me to come in. Inside the small but clean, nicely furnished 3-room apartment, I gave my wine bottles to her and she asked me to sit down on a sofa. Anita told me she was involved in an ongoing divorce process. Her 4-year-old boy spent this weekend end with his father. That first evening she wanted us to stay at home and get some takeaway from the nearby Chinese restaurant and suggested we go out the next evening. As I was not used to drinking wine, I was a little tipsy after the romantic meal in candlelight and she had us sit together on a sofa and listen to some soft music. The room was still semi-dark with the candles as the only source of light. The wine had made me brave, so I laid my hand on her knee and began slowly moving it. To my surprise she had no objections, not even when my hand reached it. But then she whispered, "Come," in my ear and led me to her bedroom where she slowly began to undress us. It was almost dark in the room so I didn't see many details of her body when we lay down on the bed. I kissed her, she began to kiss my body. It was a memorable evening which I never will forget. Anita was a good teacher and I really hoped that it was a pleasure for her to be the first woman for a young man. We did it 2 more times during the night and 1 more time in the morning. The morning was great after I had seen her well-shaped body in daylight and kissed most parts of it. After breakfast she put me to work. She had the dirtiest little red VW Polo I'd ever seen and asked me if I could get it clean. Of course, I couldn't say no to her and it took me 5 hours of hard work at a gas station to wash it with degreasing agent, fresh up the paint with rubbing and wax so it looked almost like a new car. Anita rewarded me with a late lunch and a great you-know-what. That evening Anita and I went to a popular pub where we met Billy together with a 20-something good-looking girl. We had a good time, at least until 2 of Elisa's classmates with their boyfriends came into the pub and saw me. They had big smiles on their faces when they saw that I was a little tipsy sitting next to a girl and drinking beer. I knew that I would have some serious problems the next time I went home, but to be honest, I didn't care as for the time being. But one thing is for sure, if Elise had given me what I got from Anita, I would have never cheated her, but now I had no regrets for doing it. The next night we did it only twice when we came back to her apartment. In the morning we slept until almost 11 o'clock, that was my last F with Anita. The rest of our time together we spent out in town. We took a long walk in a park when she told me about herself and her ex. She was 29 and had dumped her ex for cheating. Now when they were 4 months into their divorce she had begun to regret it. She said if he accepted what she told him about my visit, she intended to forgive him. Good for her, but less good for me because I understood that this was my first and last date with that lovely woman. As expected, Elise dumped me the next weekend when I saw her. Of course, I did my best to explain the whole problem for her, but her only reply was to wish me a one-way trip to some place where the pepper grew. I didn't know where and didn't go there. Back at the regiment, Billy immediately saw my sad mood and came up with a splendid idea: backpacking around the world when we were out of the army service. It sounded silly, but I wanted to get away as far as possible from my mess, and why not the Far East and South Pacific? The main problem was money, but Billy had a bright but dangerous idea even for that. We knew that a single mistake during our money collecting action would send us to a quite different place compared with the South Pacific, a place ruled by the government and with bars over the windows. I didn't care and was for it. However, everything went our way just as we had planned, and we got slightly more cash than expected. Nobody suspected us of anything, and now we began to put small amounts at a time into accounts in different banks, so both of us had well-loaded Visa and MC cards when we left for our backpacker trip. Our 6.5-month-long backpacker trip around the world was a great adventure, with exiting memories enough for a whole book if I get time to write it sometime in the future. On the way home we made our very last stop in London, where we met two Dutch girls whom we joined for a few days. One of them, Simone, was a very beautiful, easygoing girl. We let her choose. She did choose Billy, and rather soon they fell in real love. Only 2 weeks after we were back home, she persuaded her parents to invite Billy to see them in Holland. Obviously he made a good impression because he got a job in their family business, and soon he was their son-in-law. I was invited to the great wedding. I had a serious problem already after a week back home. It came to my knowledge that Sebastian Lindbergh, a rich daddy's spoiled son, a real brat, had been together with Elise when I was away backpacking. That wouldn't have been any of my business if he hadn't been a real a-hole toward her. When he still failed to get into after 2 months, he had conned her, got her drunk, her, and took pictures of it. As usual, he had bragged about his nasty doings and showed pictures of it at the pub. On a Saturday evening, after a few drinks together with some of my friends, we decided to go to the main hotel and pub where local people used to meet. Having a good time there with some more booze, it ended when that damn Sebastian came in and teased me about him getting Elise, though I had been her boyfriend for years. I couldn't take such humiliation and immediately attacked him, but the bouncer saw what happened, and as Sebastian was a much better customer than me, I was thrown out. On the outside I saw Sebastian's expensive BMW with his driver sitting in the car watching a film on the DVD player. Sebastian had gotten his driving license cancelled for speeding and hired this unemployed young boy as driver. The rumor said that when Sebastian had gotten enough of a one-night F, he persuaded or forced them to F his driver. While angry and boozed, a stupid idea appeared in my head. I had worked extra for a hardware store on a back street not far from the hotel and pub and knew where they kept the key to their forklift. I went there, found the key, and drove the forklift to the hotel and pub. As usual in small towns in this country, the most important buildings in town like the hotel and pub, bank, post office, and the finest shops surrounded the square. In the center of it was a water fountain with a half-meter high granite wall, and the area near the hotel and pub was used for parking. Sebastian's BMW stood parked, so it was easily available from the side. Before Sebastian's driver could react, I had lifted up the BMW high into the air on the forklift and drove it to the fountain, where I sat it down in the half-meter deep water. People at the pub had seen what I did, and within seconds I saw Sebastian running toward me. When he was at the fountain, I climbed out of the forklift and attacked him. To my luck, I succeeded in hitting him so hard on the right spot with my first punch that he fell to the ground. Don't ask me, because I can't explain where I got the stupid idea, probably simply because I had drank a lot and needed to pee, which I did right there on the lying Sebastian. Some people had tried to stop me, but my supporters were in the majority and managed to keep enough free space for me to be able to finish my intentions. A police patrol must have been a rather short distance from the square, because a young female police officer stood next to me and said, "Please don't make it worse than necessary. Let's go to my car." What could I do? I replied, "I've never said no to a beautiful lady." Though she was young, she was professional and knew that polite small talk can be much more efficient than screaming and fighting. I followed her to the patrol car, and her partner, a man in his early 30s, started the car. He had remained standing as a backup for her just in case I had tried to run. The nearest open police station was in the next town about 32 kilometers from ours, and after she had talked on the radio with the next patrol on the way to the town square, I told her that I did what I did because the damn brat had boozed and humiliated my ex-girlfriend. She thanked me for not making problems for them, and with a bright smile told me that she understood my doings and had no hard feelings against me but had to do her job. Her partner said that he would probably do something mad if some a-hole humiliated his ex-wife. I was well treated at the police station. Their report was correct, and the next morning the public prosecutor saw no reason to keep me locked in. They sent me back home in a patrol car. I asked the driver to take a look at the town square, where the forklift had been taken away but the BMW was still in the fountain as some kind of an attraction. I saw several people taking pictures of it. From then on I was a well-known character in our small town, which resulted in many invitations to parties and other events. Sebastian's father threatened to sue me for a large amount, but I politely suggested that he take his son with him and go to a place which the Bible describes to be very hot. For some unknown reason, he never sued me, and Sebastian, who now had turned into a kind of a laughingstock in town, left for an expensive business school in Switzerland. The prosecutor accused me of drunk driving with the forklift and for creating damage to a public place, and my driving license was cancelled. It was a boring time waiting for the trial, and it felt almost like a relief when I was called to the court. The prosecutor worked hard to get me 4 months incarceration, but my lawyer did a good job and it ended with 6 weeks at an open jail. In there I met a young female welfare officer who, after a long serious talk, did a very good job for me. She told me about a state-owned technical school for adults, and I was allowed to spend the last 4 weeks of my jail time at the school. I hadn't met Elise since she dumped me, but sent her some postcards during my backpacker trip. After her affair with Sebastian, she had left town for a teacher's school, and the rumors said that she had a boyfriend there. I never met her when she visited her parents, but one of her friends gave me her address, and after punishing Sebastian I sent Elise a letter telling her that Sebastian now probably regretted what he did to her, and ended the letter by wishing her good luck for the future. To my great surprise, she replied with a letter telling me though she in some way appreciated my concerns about her, she wanted no further connection with me for the time being due to a happy relationship with her boyfriend, but wished I would find somebody to be happy with. I respected what she wanted and never did any attempt to contact her. My school meant hard times for me because the economic situation forced me to work extra as much as possible, so I limited my visits in my hometown to Christmas and some of my parents' birthdays. The female welfare officer remained as my friend and helped me to resolve some matters now and then. It wasn't easy to find a Miss Right during those conditions, so I had only a few short relationships and mostly one-night stands during the whole time in school. Then at last the great exam day was there. I had reached my goal and was an engineer. My parents, relatives and many friends were there for my great day. Simone and Billy had come all the way from Holland, and to my great pleasure Elise had sent me nice flowers. The local newspaper in my hometown had an article about the forklift man's great day. Next Saturday, sitting at an outdoor cafe in my hometown, I got the surprise of my life when Elise came to my table and said, "Congratulations, I knew you could do it and really hoped that you would do it, and I'm very glad that you did it." I asked her to sit down and she told me that now she was a teacher and had been offered a job in our hometown. Though she hadn't an engagement or wedding ring on her finger, I asked her what her boyfriend did for a living. Elise shook her head and told me that she had broken up with her last boyfriend 3 months ago. I told her that I was in an almost equal situation and that I had also been offered a job in town. She was still a beautiful girl, but in a quite different way compared to the day she dumped me. With a bright smile on her face she asked me, "Do you think that somebody up there has directed our lives to this point and want us to meet again?" I replied her, "I think there might be some higher meaning with it. Could we have a date to find out more about it?" "Yes, why not?" She had already gotten a small apartment in town and we decided to meet there in the evening. I went there with a bag filled with the most delicious cakes they had at the local bakery. To the relief of both of us, we didn't talk much about the past. I didn't ask her about her boyfriends, and she didn't wasted much time with my old relationships. Instead she asked, "What are your plans for the future?" "Hopefully there must be some decent girl who wants to have a family and VVV with me, Villa, Volvo, Vav." "And your plans?" "Almost the same, but together with a decent man, and no Vav, because I want to travel a lot." Vav means dog in children's language. "Any chance for me to be the lucky man?" "Would you really want that? I'm not the girl you knew several years ago. Even I have changed, hopefully for the better, and I must confess that I never forgot you." "In that case you have to prove it. I want us to be friends and let the time show what we can do together." I accepted and we chatted for the rest of the evening. She told me about travel she wanted to do and places she wanted to see. I agreed with her in many matters and the time went fast. We talked until the clock was past 1 in the night. She offered to let me stay over that night, but only if I slept on the sofa in the living room and forgot all thoughts of thing. In my mind I understood that Elise had many doubts about our new relationship, and so had I. With too many thoughts circling in my head, it was impossible for me to fall asleep. What had I done? Did I really love her, or did I only want to F her? How was she nowadays? Why didn't her relationships last? Was she AB? Had I been too eager to be with her again? Did she really have any feelings for me? What if she was worthless in bed? Had Sebastian's made her frigid? Due to all those thoughts in my head, I was still awake when she, dressed in a long flannel nightgown, came into the room and whispered, "Are you sleeping?" "No." "Why not?" "Thinking so much about you. I love you too. You can come in and sleep in my bed if you want." I followed her to the bedroom where she took off her nightgown before lying down on her bed. Neither of us wanted to sleep, and now we did what we ought to have done many years ago. When we woke up, she told me that she had hated me for my cheating and for going away on the backpacker trip. Her relationship with Sebastian was very good until he showed what a poor creep he really is. Then she told me that my forklift action and me going to jail for her honor had made a much stronger impression on her than she could ever understand. Comparing her boyfriends with me as an imagined hero in her mind could be the reason why they left. She said, "It must have been Cupid who led your destiny to fight for a woman's honor just like an ancient knight but with a forklift instead of a white horse." We had a long serious talk about the future and decided to give our relationship a real serious try. All our doings in the past would be left behind us, and we promised to be 100% faithful to each other in the future. I moved into her apartment for a while until I could buy a house. The company where I worked had a special agreement with a local bank for house loans for their employees, so it was easy for me to be the owner of a nice house. Elise's parents didn't like me very much because for them I would be an ex-con, though my time in an open jail lasted only 2 weeks. They even hated what I had done to Sebastian because in their opinion he had been the perfect man for their daughter. The only reason for them to accept me was that I used to help them for free with different things on their house. But when I was there they never missed a chance to tell me how much they liked Elise's sister Emma's good husband Thomas, though he never did anything for them. He was a nice guy but a prototype for man with his thumbs in the palms, which meant that he was a total nerd with all kind of tools and practical matters. Elise and I had a good relationship. She didn't wanted kids for the time being, so we traveled a lot. I had let her choose the destinations, so we often went places of historic interest. One of her friends asked me at a party, "Aren't Elise and you ever thinking about family?" Due to the booze at the party, I had replied, "Yes we are, but not before Elise has seen all the places on the earth where some ancient culture has succeeded in putting at least 2 stones together." Elise happened to hear that, which caused our first serious quarrel but also had the positive result that all our trips from then on contained more time for leisure. Elise got involved in the teachers' union at the school, which should give her some extra jobs with meetings and courses. I didn't care much about it because she had plenty of time for that. Then one day, only 3 weeks after Elise had began her union activities, the shit hit the fan. I used to see the English tabloid, The Sun, now and then on the net to read their cartoons with Hagar the Horrible for the last week or so. Of course, when logged in there I even used to look for other items of interest. That very day there was an article that cell phones nowadays were the most common way to find out about a cheating spouse. Average people do not suspect their spouses of cheating, so the cruel truth is usually found out by some kind of mistake. Phones are left at home or phones are mixed up if both have similar units, and a spouse can't resist a temptation to be curious about their spouse's phone calls and nowadays even stored pictures. I had never suspected Elise of anything, and, if it hadn't been for that article in The Sun, I would never have checked her phone, which she had left at home that very evening when she went for her weekly aerobics. If anybody had suggested a bet before I checked her phone, I would have gladly staked a year's salary that I would not find anything at all compromising her in that phone. To my great luck, nobody was present to suggest such a bet. Most messages were totally innocent text and voice messages from and to her friends, her sister Emma, and even 2 from me, but there were also 2 text messages from some unknown PM and copies of one text message plus a picture of her sent to this PM, which hit me as hard as being knocked down for a 9 count in a boxing ring. The latest text message from him read, "My darling Elise. I'm thinking about you day and night and counting down the hours to the great moment when I will see you at Sergel Plaza and you will be mine, only mine, for that great weekend, which will light up my life for months. Many thanks for the great photo. Your loving friend PM." Much text for a text message, but obviously he knew that Elise and I shared the home computer and that her mail on the work computer was not safe for secrets because the IT security people had the right to read emails while they searched for illicit data. At least one teacher had been caught within his mailbox. PM's oldest message read, "Darling Elise. Thanks for coming to the 2-day course at Sergel Plaza. May I dare suggest you find an excuse so you can stay Friday night and hopefully even Saturday night there? Union will pay. I miss you and please send a photo, topless, to my phone. Love PM." Elise's reply to his first message read, "Dear Peter. One extra night will be possible. Please remember it is only a one-time game and I love my boyfriend, but want it even before we have family. Picture sent, but not topless. Love Elise." What crap? Get even with me. If she had forgiven me when I cheated on her, I would have at least understood her. But she didn't. Instead, she dumped me without giving me a chance to explain. She got even with that whole Sebastian and her other boyfriends. I'm surprised that she doesn't want to remember what we promised each other when we began this new relationship. She used to go to a cafe with some friends for girl talk and gossip after the aerobics, so I had some time to act. I had read about FlexiSpy in a computer magazine, downloaded and paid for a copy on the net, and loaded it to her cell phone. From then on, I would be able to read copies of all her text messages on my computer. Obviously, the girls had a lot of gossip that evening, which gave me plenty time to act and be ready in time before she came home. Elise immediately saw that something was wrong. She became worried and asked me about the reason. I told her the truth that I didn't feel well but didn't say why. She hadn't told me anything about the course, and when she did 1 week later, I asked her, "Sounds funny that the course will last until noon at Saturday. There used to be a lot of spare time at such events. Maybe I'll come there on Friday so we can see a show and have a good time and probably even stay there Saturday night?" She looked very worried and said, "It would be great, but we have everything planned for the whole time there. Hardly any spare time at all." "Okay, I understand. Could you please show me that prospectus?" Now it began to be funny. She looked almost panicked when she replied, "Of course, but one of my fellow teachers at the school wanted to see it. You'll get it as soon as I get it back." It was she who had begun that nasty game, and I decided to give her one more problem before I gave up for this time. Let her have it. The union guy at my job can fix me a copy. I'm sure he knows several people at your union. Such things must be a piece of cake for him. Now she was really worried. "No, don't do that. I can get problems if it comes out that I've given my copy to a coworker." "What the hell? Do you have secrets from the average members who pay for that leisure time at an expensive downtown hotel in our capital?" She looked worried but didn't answer that question. Of course, I used my connection to get the real prospectus. The next day I got a FlexiSpy copy of a text message she sent to Peter. "Dear Peter. Serious problem. Boyfriend curious. Please call my cell phone at 10:15. Love, Elise." Obviously he had called her and agreed to fax her a fake prospectus with an extra day because she gave me one when I was home from work. I read it for a while and it was very well done. If I hadn't known that it was faked, I would never have had any doubts. However, I said, I missed the list about participants, which used to be enclosed with such programs. "Why do you want to see that?" "Because I want to see if any teachers from my technical school will be there." "What the hell do you think about me? Do you intend to ask them to watch me?" "Forget it." I could have said, yes, but didn't. Instead I said, "Don't blame me, blame the union people. It is they who have been involved in several nasty scandals, usually paid with the members' money. Didn't ladies get rewarded with Big D at some union event? It was metal workers, not teachers." She accused me of having a dirty mind. It was not a happy evening between us two. The next day Peter sent her 2 short, "I love you" text messages. She didn't reply. That evening was my bowling evening, and on these evenings Elisa's sister Emma used to visit her for girl talk. I bought 2 small-sized electronic voice-operated recorders and hid one in the kitchen and one in the living room because I had to know if Emma was involved in Elisa's cheating plans. Emma was. Of course, most of the time they talked about other matters, but a few times Elisa's trip was the subject. Emma asked, "What did Wilmer say about your weekend trip?" "I'm afraid that he suspects something because he is asking too many questions and even offered to come to the hotel and take me out Friday evening. Sometimes I'm feeling uncomfortable about the whole matter." "Why don't you dump him again and be free to F whoever you want?" "Because I love him, want to marry him and want to have children with him. I don't understand at all what you see in him, but I would like to F around if I was like you and didn't have any children." "You have F around with your boss though you have children, didn't you?" "Yes, but that gave me both pleasure and promotion." It was news to me that Emma had been cheating and now did her best to persuade Elise to go on with her plans. After a long time with mumbo-jumbo about clothes, Elise asked Emma, "What the hell shall I do if he comes to the hotel and finds Peter and me sharing a room?" "No problem, dear sis, we shall keep him busy at home the whole damn weekend. Mom wants a new floor in the living room and you have to persuade him to do that. Just give him the best F in ages and persuade him on fixing the floor. That will keep him busy until you are back home on Saturday evening." It was difficult to believe that Emma was such a cunning cow. I had thought that we were friends and had helped her and her impractical husband with many things at their house. What a damn family they were. But now it was high time for me to show them that it could be risky to throw their damn crap on me. I wrote a letter to Emma's husband. "Dear Thomas, I regret to say that you will be one of the last people in this town to know that your wife Emma is F with her boss. However, it is better late than never. Best regards from a caring friend." He got it the next day, and when I was at home after the job, Elise asked me, "Would you mind if Emma stayed a few days in our spare room?" Why? Because Thomas and she have had a slight quarrel. Why? I don't know. No. Why no? Because I'm sure that you know the reason, and if you don't want to tell me the truth, my answer is no Emma in this house. Elise was silent for about 10 seconds before she replied, "Emma has cheated and Thomas has found out about it." I shouted, "No, no and no. I will never accept any damn cheating in this house. Do you understand?" With a fearful look on her face she replied, "Yes, I do, and it is better that she stays with Mom and Dad, though Mom is rather angry with her for the time being." One thing was for sure, Elise knew that her romantic nights with Peter would not be the great pleasure she had expected them to be when she accepted his courting. Now she knew that our relationship was hanging on a very thin string. Many people could report to me, somebody from this town could be at that hotel, some morale watcher at the course could be suspicious, and now when Emma had problems, she could leak to me if she envied Elise's happy relationship. She went to her parents to see Emma, and rather soon Flexaspy sent me a copy of a text message from her to Peter. "Dear Peter, I don't know if I dare come to that course at all. I fear that the price will be too high. Love, Elise." He replied within an hour, "My darling Elise, I'll make your risk almost zero. Please think positive, we are closer and closer to our great time. PM." Elise had replied, "Peter, tell me how." When she came back from her parents she told me that Emma had been a total mess because Thomas had thrown her out of their house. Then she said that her parents had plans for a new floor in their living room and asked me if I could do that this Saturday while she was away. Emma would be there and could assist me. I replied, "Never in hell. A month ago I was there a whole Saturday and didn't get so much as a cup of coffee, and none of the cheapskates even found it worth saying thank you to me when I was finished. Thomas can help his damn because I have some more important matters to care of that day. Emma and Thomas have never done anything at all for your cheapskate parents, and it's high time for them to begin to do something." Elise wasn't happy about my comment and asked, "What is the matter? Do you still insist on coming and being a watchdog for me at my course?" "To be honest, no, I don't care about your course or what you are doing there." Now she looked real worried when she asked, "What are you going to do then?" "You'll see when you get back." "Something on our house?" "It wasn't our house. It was my house, and I intended to pack her belongings in cardboard boxes and take them to her parents, but I didn't say that. Only no. The next Saturday evening was a funny evening, a real pleasure, indeed. Elise had cooked a delicious dinner, bought a good wine, and did wear a sexy short black dress. During the meal she told me that she had talked with her parents and complained about how impolite they had been when I had helped them. They had told her that they had not forgotten me, far from that. Instead of small rewards now and then they wanted to pay for a big memorable wedding for us. Elise had a very beautiful smile on her face when she looked at me and said, "Even I'm beginning to look forward to having a family, and our only problem is that you haven't proposed yet." Obviously she expected me to do that, and when I remained silent, her face turned to a worried look when I changed the subject of our chat. I decided to be a good boy and avoid arguing about her course. I intended to let her make it into a great evening just as Emma and she had made their plans. She neither mentioned the wedding nor her parents' new floor any more times during the evening. Just as I expected, we ended the evening by having the best thing in a long time. My only doubt was if it were only for her rehearsal of what she would give Peter. In the morning she asked me about her parents' new floor, and I replied, "Who knows, maybe I'll think about it sometime in the future, but not for the time being." I thought to say, "To hell with that damn floor." But didn't say that. Instead I decided not to dump her without giving her a chance to skip the cheating. I intended to call her cell phone when her train had left the station and give her a fair choice: go for Peter and be dumped, or get off the train at the first stop, take a taxi home and save our relationship. Elise called me at my job Tuesday and asked me to shop for a few things at the supermarket on my way home after work. At the parking lot I noted Elise's parents' car, and, if they saw me there, I expected them to talk about the floor I had refused to install. But instead of her parents I rather soon met Emma, and because I knew she had done her best to persuade Elise to cheat on me, I couldn't resist the temptation to say, "Hi, Emma, no surprise for me that Thomas caught you being a cheating W." Emma got mad, and before she left me she was sputtering with rage. Better to shut up when you don't can be sure about Elise's faithfulness. Elise and Peter's text messages during the last days had been limited to several short, "I love you" messages from him, and only one, "We need to talk" from her. It was my last bowling evening before Elise left for the weekend, and I switched on the recorders just in case Emma would visit her. I didn't mention to Elise that I had met Emma at the supermarket. My bowling and the chat afterwards lasted until late in the evening, and Elise was already in bed but still awake when I got home. I told her I had some work to do and it would take 1 hour, then I went to my den with the recorders. Just as expected, Emma had paid her a visit but said that she could only stay a short time because Thomas and she were meeting for a peace talk at a friend's place at 8 o'clock. Emma had almost immediately asked, "Did Wilmer tell you that we met at the supermarket?" "No." "Did he say anything about Mom's new floor?" "No." "Hasn't he promised to do it yet?" "Didn't you give him VIP treatment last Saturday?" "Yes, I did, but he refused to do the floor and I'm afraid that he suspects something about Peter. I don't think I dare to get involved in some kind of an affair with him this weekend. It is not worth the terrible high price it would cost me if Wilmer found out something." "What does Peter say?" "I think you ought to go for it. I wouldn't hesitate a second. If Peter really loves me as much as he says, he will wait for a better opportunity. What about yourself? Is your own fling worth being thrown out of your home? What if you don't get a new opportunity?" "I don't regret anything. Thomas will forgive me, probably this evening, and our thing will be better than ever. No problems, dear sister." What a b. I'm sure Emma envied Elise for her happy relationship with a real man and for some reason wanted her down to the same level as herself. Elise said with a clear voice, "My Wilmer isn't such a wimp as your Thomas." "Yes, he is. Those big-mouth fellows are the worst wimps when they have serious problem. Believe me, he will cry and beg you to stay with him if he finds out anything about Peter." Elise wasn't convinced and said, "He wasn't a wimp last time when I dumped him. It was me who regretted it like hell, and if it hadn't been for Mom, I would have begged him to come back to me as early as the next day." Emma ended it with, "You know my advice." Then they began to talk about some cousin's birthday. One of the secretaries at my job was married to a lawyer and I had asked her to hire her husband to get information about this Peter Mullen and got it after she had lunch with her husband on Wednesday. It was worse than expected. Peter had conned his ex-wife's parents out of a large amount of money and had been beating his ex-wife and forced her to have kinky thing when she told him that she wanted a divorce. He had only gotten 6 months probational sentence, which meant that he had succeeded in convincing the judge that he regretted everything and would never do it again. Once again I changed my plans about Elise. Because this Peter without a doubt was a psychopath and such people can be very charming and clever men, it wasn't only Elise's fault that she had turned into a naive prey that believed everything he said and had not been able to suspect his real intentions. Even the union, which had given him his present work, must have been conned. Therefore I decided to once again change my plans, and now I intended to do my best to stop her at home before she went for the course. Our future would depend on what happened during our talk, and I wanted to get away from home during that weekend alone or together with Elise, and booked 2 cheap last-minute airline tickets and a room at a cheap hotel abroad. I interrupted her by saying, "We have some serious matters to talk about before you do that. By the way, did Emma tell you I met her at the supermarket?" "Yes." "Did she tell you what I said to her?" Elise had a fearful look on her face when she replied, "She only mentioned that she met you there." I told her that I wasn't surprised that she is a cheating W, and guess what she replied? She told me to shut up about her cheating because I don't know a shit about your doings on that same matter. Of course, she ran away without saying further details, but I believe on the old saying, no smoke without fire. She was blushing when she replied, almost whispering, "Oh, my God, did you really call her a W? I don't know what she meant because I can swear that I've never cheated you." I looked her straight in her eyes and said, "I want to ask you a few questions but want to say something before I do that. Cheating isn't always a bad thing. When 2 people who are unhappy in their present relationships happen to meet, their cheating can lead to a new happy relationship. Or it can be done with a limited risk if you protect yourself and do it far away from home with somebody you've never seen either before or after that only occasion." Elise didn't reply and I continued, "But if you have a relationship with an average spouse, a planned ongoing affair will probably terminate your relationship. A spouse with common sense will find it out sooner or later. It doesn't matter what your lover will promise you before the first time and how careful you will be. Because thereafter you are caught just like a fish on the hook and can't stop it if he doesn't want to let you go." I looked her straight in her eyes when I said, "The only thing he needs to do is to give you a slight hint to be a good girl and your spouse will never know. If you love your spouse much more than your lover, it will be enough for him to get you to obey everything that he wants you to do. Please remember that many of the most charming and successful wife seducers are psychopaths with kinky demands, and it is not unusual that they share praise with their kinky friends." Now Elise had got very uncomfortable when I continued, "Let us pretend that you have a lover who demands to see and F you 2 months after your wedding when you have skipped the pills, planning on getting pregnant with your spouse. Pretend that your lover refuses to use AC and sometime afterwards you find out that you are pregnant. What shall you do? Go for an abortion with 50% risk that you are killing that you and your husband want so much? Or will you take a 50% risk to give birth to your lover's bastard? Of course, you can have day after pills, but what if your husband happens to find such things when you are trying hard be pregnant with him? She was ashen gray when I finished my speech with, "Please don't try to lie to me when you answer my questions. I can't take any lies in this matter. Do you love me or hate me right now?" "Of course I love you. You ought to know that." "Why do you doubt that?" "Because I know for sure that Emma didn't pull her statement about you from the air. I love you very much but will not hesitate to dump you this very evening if you try to tell me any lies. Do you want to tell me something about your intentions during the nights at the course?" Now she began to cry and shouted, "No. Don't dump me, please believe me, please, Wilmer, I have never cheated you. Please believe me, I love you. But you have lied to me, haven't you?" She sobbed, "Never about my love to you. I don't give a shit about that before I hear you confess about your damn lies. Or do you really prefer to share a room with Emma at your parents' house? Please let me hear the whole damn story about you and Peter Mullen." Elise was shocked when I mentioned his name, then she began to cry for several minutes before she could speak. During an information day for us teachers we met a very handsome charming union man who was given a half hour of our day to speak about his union. During the coffee break he happened to get a seat next to me and began to persuade me to take some important assignments for the union because they were short of people in our town. Almost all teachers are members but it was nearly impossible to find somebody who agreed to do something for the union. He talked very convincingly and a male teacher and I agreed to go for further information to a hotel in the next town. She sobbed for a while again before she continued. We were 16 teachers from the whole county at the meeting, which ended with a dinner and then we stayed to dance at the hotel and the drinks were on the union. The band played many slow tunes and Peter, the handsome union man, danced most of them with me. He was very polite and charming and didn't try any tricks. It was almost dark on the dance floor, so we danced very close and I felt he was real hard. I was a little tipsy from the 2 big drinks Peter brought me from the bar so I turned a little horny, which Peter obviously noted. But nothing else did happen then he got a hug and a quick kiss after the last dance. Then my sober colleague and I immediately left for home in his car. After drinking some water Elise went on with, Peter rang me the next day and after a long flattering talk he persuaded me to join a union course at Hotel Sergel Plaza in the capital. He said that he had fallen in love with me because I was exactly the type of girl he always had dreamt about and many more compliments like that. Now it sounds like pure shit but he said it in a very convincing way. The next time he rang me he asked about you and if I had suspected you for cheating. I told him the truth that you once in time cheated on me. Within a few days he had convinced me that I would be much happier during the rest of my life if I would get even in a one-time romantic affair with him. He said that he would arrange so the union to pay 2 extra nights for us at Sergel Plaza for our romance. I must have acted like a romance-seeking schoolgirl again with all these romantic text and voice messages and phone calls. Then you asked for the course prospectus, which gave me cold feet until Peter found a solution with a fake prospectus and Emma, who knew about Peter, gave me the hint that Mom wanted a new floor. The floor should have kept you busy but you refused to do that work for me. I gave Elise my copy of the real prospectus and said, I had a good reason for that and instead of fixing that damn floor I had planned to pack your belongings in cardboard boxes and take them to your mom. When she understood that I had known her lies, she shouted, "Oh, my God, mercy. Please forgive me. I've been naive and stupid but I have never cheated on you. Good Lord, is it my turn to be dumped now?" I told her she wouldn't be if she told me the truth and asked her to continue. She said, after much chat with Peter we decided to limit our affair only to Thursday night and I would use the first ticket and go home on Friday like everybody else at the course, which would be a surprise for you. But after our romantic Saturday I got scared when you ignored my attempts to get you to propose. I regretted the whole S and decided to skip all Peter's attempts to be alone with me at the hotel. I intended to sneak away from the dinner on Thursday evening, lock me in my room, not open the door for anybody and not take any phone calls. I should send Peter a text message, which said that I had met 2 friends from home and gone to their room for a drink and chat. I gave her the copies of Peter's record and told her that her chances to avoid being effed by the psychopath at the course a long way from home would have been less than 50% because such people were very smart while conning their victims. He could have fooled her with some trustworthy excuse to get her into an empty room during some break at the course during the daytime and seduce or force her to do something, not necessary and after taking some pictures used them to blackmail her to obey his worst demands, probably for more than one night. I asked Elise, what would you have done if he had gotten a picture of you with your chest and threatened to send it to me? She sobbed and didn't reply so I continued, the most confusing thing in the whole mess is how a clever woman like you believed everything this psychopath told you though you hardly knew him at all. It is difficult to believe that you fell in love with this kinky bastard after only a few dances. Are you really so incredibly naive that you didn't make any attempts to find out who he really is? Yes, I must have been stupid, very stupid, indeed, when thinking he was a good guy. But I must be honest and say that everything isn't just his fault. Once in my lifetime I wanted to be AS for 1 or maybe 2 nights before I was your loving faithful wife. You caused me so much pain with your cheating, and I thought it would be easier to be a wife and mother if I had been a nasty girl at this one occasion. Peter seemed to be a perfect partner for that experience, and we, of course, intended and agreed to see if we had it. My wife and mother of my children? Wouldn't that be difficult if I had dumped you? Do you really think I want to marry a cheating S? She looked at me in panic when she sobbed, I haven't cheated you. When I got my senses back I regretted the whole stupid idea and skipped all intentions to do it. What shall I do? Please forgive me, or are you going to dump me? Are you? No. I love you so much and I will never be so stupid again. Just tell me, what shall I do? Tomorrow you will terminate all your union missions, but you can remain as an average member. Then on Friday morning you can come with me to Paris for a weekend. They're talking about our relationship. Of course, it will only be budget airline and a budget hotel at Pigalle. Now Elise smiled when she said, I would even agree to walk there and sleep under a bridge just for having the great pleasure to do it with you. I had a serious talk with Peter's female union boss and with Peter and his present spouse, who was 6 months pregnant with the creep's baby. I don't know yet what happened or if anything at all happened to him. One thing is for sure, he will avoid our small town and rather run as if chased by the devil than meet me face to face if he see me somewhere. When Elise asked me how I found out about her and Peter, I only told her about the fake prospectus, which led me to get further information about Peter. No reason to mention anything about the son, her cell phone, FlexiSpy, or my electronic voice recorders. Neither Elise nor Peter sent any further text messages to each other within a week, so I deleted FlexiSpy from her cell phone. Elise and I had a good time in Paris, and during a romantic dinner there I proposed. She said yes and promised to be faithful, loving wife. Wednesday was Elise's aerobics evening and she went there as usual. When she was back home after their coffee and gossip session she told me it was high time for her to begin packing for the course trip.